it where I can get to my computer. It's not going to stick there, is it?
All right, guys, we're going to rock and roll today on the Friday edition of Real Talk with Keith Smith. We have Woody Fincham in the house. Woody is just a pro's pro when it comes to the appraisal game. Family-owned business, Fincham and Associates. Son and his wonderful wife work inside and alongside the business. We'll catch up with one of the busiest appraisers in the game to see how his book of business is doing. We'll talk market trends on the program. A lot we're going to cover on the Friday edition of Real Talk. Join us in the discussion, ask questions, participate. We're happy to take your questions and put them on the feed, and we're very excited to connect with you on what is an absolutely glorious summer day in Central Virginia. I see questions already coming in here. We will talk, we will talk about the question that came up on Wednesday. Jonathan, the question that came up on Wednesday, new construction in a neighborhood, driving values for the neighborhood. When does that new construction become no longer new construction and a comp that could be used for existing real estate?
Sure.
So that was something that came up. Jonathan wants us to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Happy to do that. Give the show a like and a share wherever you are watching. Like the show, share the show, like the show, share the show. And we'll take your questions on the program. J-Dubs, things are looking good on our end. We say hi to David Massey and Ray Ann Perry. Thank you kindly for watching over on Woody's page right now.
Ray Ann's my niece. I'm glad she's watching.
Welcome to the family. Family is important here. On LinkedIn, Jennifer Smack, hello and welcome to the show. We appreciate you watching. Things are looking good on my end. What you got, Woody's page there? Sync, Judah, we can rock and roll. Right. You're busy.
Yeah.
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 That's good.
We took Lori to Puerto Rico for her birthday, for 50th. And it just compounds how busy you get, when you're a small business.
I know the feeling. I'm going to be heading out of town for some much needed R&R at the end of July and into the first week of August. And I'm already thinking about the workflow management as clients are getting the heads up on that.
We always say the appraisal gods are fickle beasts because they wait for us to go out of town and they inundate us with work. It's a blessing, but it's a lot to manage.
The life of a small business owner, guys, for those that do not know, when it rains, it pours, and when it pours, it often happens at not always the best time, but the alternative is way, way worse. Roger Voisinay, welcome to the program of RE/MAX. Hello, Roger. Happy birthday, belated. J-Dubs, let's rock and roll. Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and this is Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us live in downtown Charlottesville in the Macklin Building on the I Love Seville Network on a show presented by Keller Williams Alliance and just the trusted supply chain of real estate here in Central Virginia. Visit Real Talk with Keith Smith and pull down the Partners tab, and you will see the people you can count on to get you to the closing table, the home of your dreams, refinance your house, buy a second property. I know firsthand, I've worked alongside a lot of these personally and professionally. Today's program, Keith Smith is traveling to Seattle. He's going to move his daughter, his son-in-law, and his granddaughter to Richmond, Virginia, as they've purchased a home in the capital of the Commonwealth, and they make the trip from the left coast to the right coast. Keith will be back, I believe, a week from today or the following week, but we have some folks in the chair that are pros, and today's guest absolutely embodies that quality. Woody Fincham on the show. Judah will go studio camera in the two-shot, and we'll welcome Woody Fincham, the founder of Fincham and Associates. My friend, good Friday morning to you.
Yeah, good morning to you. Thanks for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure. We'll start with a big picture question. From your standpoint, how is the market doing?
It's going along splendidly. I was doing some metrics this morning to prep for the show, and just looking at each of the individual counties that are right around the Charlottesville and Albemarle area, and everything's just humming along splendidly. I mean, everything's appreciating. We're seeing at least single-digit increases almost monthly, particularly in Albemarle. Fluvanna is definitely picking up, and there's still a shortage of inventory, but that's not a bad thing.
Inventory shortage, John Blair, hello, is something we've been talking about. We percolated and speculated and scuttlebutted on Wednesday's program with rates potentially dropping, and we've already seen rates drop a nice chunk since Wednesday to today. Wednesday morning, 7.25. CPI came in cool. 30-year fixed, I believe, is in the 6-8 window, depending on a lot of factors, good credit, payment history, et cetera, but we've already seen a nice little drop here.
Yeah.
This is the question I got for you. If rates continue to fall, how do you expect this to impact the market?
It's just going to put more stress on the low inventory. I mean, if you're trying to get a home, your selection's very low, and you may not be getting into your dream home, but you'll be getting into something. But you're going to be very competitive, and you're going to have to offer, a good competitive offer to make it work.
Do we think that the rates dropping will drive more inventory?
Probably not. I mean,
Yeah.
I
You don't think so?
I don't, I look at my own situation, which is anecdotal at best, but, we're at 2 3/4, and we've been in our home 7 years now. I mean, typically, statistically, we would be ready to move about now, because that's when most people will move. We're not going anywhere. Why would I sell a home to just put myself into a position where I'm, going to pay a whole lot more, number one, because I've got massive equity in the property. So, I think a lot of people are in that same boat.
Yours truly in that same boat. So that's the conversation we've been having. A lot of folks are watching this closely. Could it be more competitive for those trying to get a home with rates lower? Now the lowered rates make things more affordable, but it's going to make the buyer pool deeper.
Yep.
Is that going to be a more competitive market for folks, or is the affordability factor going to offset the competitiveness?
Well, I mean, increased competition with a finite inventory level, I mean, basic economics, I mean, it's just going to drive prices higher.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen as well. Talk to us about your book of business.
We are swamped. We've been doing a lot of private work, and in appraisal, what private work means is we're doing a lot of stuff for trusts and private purchases that aren't using lending or traditional lending. A lot of litigation, still a lot of divorce and partition suits and things like that going on. So, and the local attorney population's been very kind to us. That's the work that we enjoy doing the most. So it's a lot of fun.
We have a book of business that you are appraising, or a portfolio of inventory that you're appraising, that I think the community may know well. Mm-hmm. The Dogwood properties. I know there's not a lot you can say here.
Sure.
Show's yours on this.
Yeah, I can talk about it in general. We just got done doing I think it was about 25 properties that they just purchased from Woodard Properties, and that was a fun project to do. It was relatively chaotic because it's a lot of property to do in a short period of time. But I think our first day of inspections, my son and I went out together, which is unusual because my son Woody is generally just in the office doing analysis and things like that. But he went out and did inspections. I think we did 16 the first day and then finished them up the next day. It was a very busy couple of days.
We'll follow those closely. I like that they use a local appraiser on that, one of the best in you. Other trends you think we should be following closely, then I'll get to some of these comments coming in.
Well, I mean, really, I mean, things have been humming along almost, status quo for the last several months as far as, shortage of inventory goes. We're seeing Greene County is really coming along. I know there's a couple of subdivisions coming online there in the next year or two, potentially. And there's a lot of land for sale in Greene, up around the Route 29 area. Fluvanna, where I live, we're still kind of moving along. Colonial Place is coming along splendidly. I ride by that every day going to work, and they're already starting to dry all that in. So it's neat seeing that come online.
How about Albemarle County?
Albemarle is, like always, is the center of our universe here, basically, for the MSA, for the Metropolitan Statistical Area, or the region, I guess is the easier way to say it. But yeah, I mean, it's going along splendidly. I mean, I was running metrics this morning where we looked at the county as a whole, and that's considering the luxury property and the lower end property as well, and that's still appreciating at a good rate. When you go down to below 750,000 or lower and less than 5 acres, I mean that's even more competitive. There's a larger consumer base buying in that market, so it's definitely humming along nicely.
The city of Charlottesville.
It's just like Albemarle. I mean, we're really watching with a lot of interest what's going to happen with the zoning changes. I've got several properties that we've appraised recently where if that new zoning was into effect, it would really change the dynamics of how that property would probably transact.
You're talking values.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Give us, without talking specifics, a snapshot.
Well, with them kind of sneaking in that commercial development that can happen, I think we're going to start seeing savvy investors and folks that want to get hold of property looking at leveraging that. I mean, there are definitely properties in the city that, are in great locations for something that would be non-residential. And once you get investors involved that want to use it for non-residential purposes, the value of the land will change. The delta on that will go up.
It seems there's a lot of momentum and tailwinds with the investor model. You got rates dropping.
Yep.
We got this upzoning percolating. Mm-hmm. I was talking with someone who I believe is watching the program now that was following Planning Commission and following council and how they're going to potentially consider upzoning, or as Peter Krebs said, it's not just upzoning, it's also rezoning.
Yes.
And it seems like council, especially after the Democratic primary, is going to be all in on this upzoning and rezoning play. The investor over the next short period of time, as rates drop and as upzoning and rezoning become a reality, how do you see the investor playing in this market?
Well, as long as investors are able to get cheap money or cheaper money, they're going to look at parking it into an investment that's going to give them a return. And what's a better return than a market that's transitioning the way this one possibly will be transitioning once that zoning change happens. Unfortunately, and I think anytime policies are pushed through, there's always unintended consequences that come with it. And looking at my crystal ball, I think what it's going to do is stress affordable housing. I don't think it's going to help it at all, because if you've got investors looking at leveraging the ability to do something with it non-residentially or getting denser residential for rental portfolios, you're looking at a situation where rents are just going to go up and values of homes are just going to go up.
I 1,000% agree with everything you just said right there. We'll get to these comments here in a matter of moments. Do you think rents are on the rise, or rents flat, or rents going downward?
Well, with that large portfolio we just did, we did a lot of rental analysis with that. Almost everything's driven by the income approach in those situations, and we're showing appreciation on all the rents across the board.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of appreciation?
It's not as severe as the
COVID appreciation?
No,
okay.
no. I mean, it's just it's normal for the market to naturally mature in a positive direction. Even when the market's normal. Of course, we're not in a normal market. 25 years of doing this, I've never seen a market like we're in right now. And
how do you characterize this market?
It's chaos.
Still.
Yeah. I mean, we're starting a lot of our single-family purchases that we do for lending. They're multiple offers still. I mean, we handle everything over in the valley from Page County down to Lexington, and then all the way to Louisa to the east, and all the way to the West Virginia line to the west. And I don't, other than maybe Buckingham and a couple of really small rural markets out west, everything's appreciating. It's we're not seeing anything. Now, some of the multi-market is stabilized in the last several months, but that's probably going to change as interest rates go down.
Put that in perspective. Give us that in a more layman's.
So when we were doing a lot of the market analysis in Dogwood, and this is just general information, it's not nothing specific to what we were working on, but the multis, when I'm a residential appraiser for the most part, so when I'm talking about multis, we're talking about small residential multis that go from 2 to 4 units. Anything above 4 units would be considered commercial property or commercial residential. So for that small residential investment property, the last year or so, we've seen sales prices sort of normalize, meaning that they are appreciating, but at a very slow rate. Whereas, a couple years ago and up into COVID, they were appreciating fast. But that's definitely slowed a little bit. I think a lot of that had to do with the interest rates in the fall. But with us looking at a downward trend, more money is going to become available, and that's of course going to put more stress on it. So,
do you think the market we're heading into will be more competitive for first-time home buyers than peak COVID?
I don't. I mean, using the word competitive and first-time home buyers is almost an oxymoron right now. I mean,
well said.
If
it's more expensive now.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, entry level $400,000 or more, and there's not a lot available even at that price point.
It's bananas right now. All right, we'll get to comments here. Let's get to the one from Jonathan, and then I'll get to the other ones that are coming in on Twitter and on YouTube. He says, bring up the topic from Wednesday when new construction starts becoming a legitimate comp for a neighborhood. Basically, when does a new construction or a house that was just built get so long in the tooth that existing houses in the neighborhood can use that new construction as a comp?
So the common sense answer from an appraiser perspective is that when does something become comparable to something else? Well, it's when the consumer group is looking at properties as alternatives to one another. So, and I assume from your question that we're talking about spot building in existing neighborhoods?
That's right.
Infill? Okay.
Yeah.
So with infill construction, new construction typically is going to be its own market, even within an existing market. If you've got a home that's 70 years old, it doesn't really compete with a new construction home. The design of the properties are usually vastly different because building science has changed so much in the decades between the properties. And now, if it's a remodeled home, that's a different story, where they've done a gut, where all the mechanical and everything's been brought up to current code. They sometimes will compete with new construction, but we see a lot like. I can't think of the name of the street, but we just did a really big home that was built in an older neighborhood off of Ridge, and it's you're comparing it to other things around the city that are new being built in existing neighborhoods, and you're just not going to. The two things really don't compete. And you were asking before the show about when does something go from new construction to not new construction. Using Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's rules on how they define it, it's anything that's less than a year. If it can be lived in up to a year, then after that it's considered existing, but before that it's considered new construction. So that's usually the filter that we'll use.
Tom Reynolds asking how he can listen, and Charissa Kwan.
Oh, awesome.
Has shared the link with Tom, and now they are listening to you right now. Sean Johnson, hello and welcome to the program. Tammy Wilt, welcome to the program. Remax and Nest, welcome to the program. Neil Williamson for Woody. This is the topic that everyone's talking about, so we should spend some more time on this.
Sure.
He says, while I respectfully disagree with Jerry and Woody regarding the impact of adding housing supply to the Charlottesville market, I am seeing very interesting statistics locally and nationally regarding increasing renter retention data. More housing everywhere for everyone, for Neil Williamson. Neil's of the mindset, and we have a lot of love for Neil in this program, and I believe he's joining us next week, that if we increase the density and the supply, the prices will stabilize, which could breed affordability for the market. You and I are of the mindset that if we make the dirt more opportunistic,
yes,
and the dirt more expensive because it is more opportunistic, then folks are going to have to pay more money for the dirt and the structures that are on it.
Yeah.
And if they pay more money for the dirt and the structures that are on that dirt, they're going to expect a larger return on investment on that purchase, which is just basic investor strategy.
Sure.
And as they expect more ROI for the opportunistic dirt that's more expensive and the structures that are on that dirt, they're going to come to market with price points that aren't necessarily affordable. And if you have this collision, it's going to continue to drive price points northward. That's a very layman flip book right there.
I think so.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The multiple people are asking here about the upzoning. Here's a great question from Kelsey. Why would this even be considered if it's a possibility of making things more expensive? I don't want to answer for you, but I have a feeling where your answer is going to go. I'll throw it to you on that Kelsey's question.
So going back to Neil real quick, there's few people in Charlottesville that I respect more than Neil. He's a great guy, wealth of knowledge, and we're lucky to have him at CAR and with the free enterprise forum.
Agreed.
So the spirit of what they're trying to do, I think, is a positive thing. But like in anything with the free market, capitalism's a wonderful thing, but it can also become toxic in some instances too. And generally, that's when people figure out how to leverage it to their own personal advantage. So, I mean, if they do it, if people are going to use the upzoning to offer more homes, and of course, they're going to try to get as competitive a rent as they can out of those properties. But in the end, I mean, if we're not going to have a lot of companies coming in or investors coming in to own the properties and then leverage it up as high as they can, it will work well. I agree with Neil there. However, human behavior would dictate that it probably won't go that direction. I mean, if I had to guess, I would be very pleased to see Charlottesville, personally, from my own perspective, to help with affordable housing, to not allow commercial development when they do this. This should only be for residential density building. It should not be for commercial.
Okay, let's go down that road.
Yep.
Talk to us more about that.
Well, I mean, you talked about on the show a couple weeks ago where, there's a possibility with the way they've got this written right now that, someone could buy a couple of residential lots in a residential district and put a 7-Eleven in, or a vape store, or a cannabis store, or, whatever. It would be a non-residential use. What happens in those situations is that oftentimes the properties adjacent to them will become not less valuable, but less desirable, in the sense that it's going to become renter occupied, not owner occupied. It's also going, if you put a petrol station or a gas station in the middle of a residential zone, no one wants to live next to that. And generally speaking, it's going to be lower rent property when you get into that. So it could actually cause blight in the neighborhood if you're not careful. I mean, that's being extreme.
No,
but
we see that happen.
Yeah,
that's happened in Charlottesville. We see that happen
sure.
now. All right, I'll throw this to you here. This is something that also should be highlighted. If the dirt is opportunistic and the structures on the dirt are potentially upzoned for more density, we could be taking away housing in its current form that is more affordable and making it more expensive. So we could be doing the opposite of breeding affordability, because we're making investors, we're making the potential buy more attractive to investors, and those potential buys would have potentially been there for first-time home buyers or second-time move-up buyers. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, I agree with it. I mean, you go to any large metropolitan area, like just say Chicago. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Chicago for various reasons. If you go anywhere near the central business district, real estate's ridiculously expensive, right? The same thing's going to happen with interior Charlottesville. I mean, we are a very small metro when it comes down to it. But in the end, if you want to be downtown or close to downtown, you're going to pay more to be there. This isn't going to make it more affordable if it goes the direction I think it's going. It would be nice to see Albemarle open up some more development zones. That would help more than anything else. I was in a meeting a couple days ago that Keith Smith was running for the housing, I can't think of it, the Thomas Jefferson...
Planning District Commission?
Yes, thank you. My brain's not working. And there were developers and stakeholders from all over the housing industry there, in the county as well. And they're trying to figure out how to solve the problem. And a lot of folks were suggesting, hey, let's get rid of a lot of the requirements, because it adds a lot of costs to what's going on, and let's get some more land open to development, even out in the rural areas maybe. Manufactured homes were brought up because that is an affordable way to go. You can put in a whole lot more units at a manufactured home level than you can with traditional stick built.
Jesse Rutherford, Nelson County Board of Supervisor, hello. Holly Foster, hello. Peter Krebs was on yesterday's show. The Piedmont Environmental Council, hello. James Watson, hello. Brent Lillard, the real estate investor and the CEO of GovSmart, hello. Jeremy Rowe, hello. Kevin Yancey, Jamie Turner, Lisa Costello, Dave Warwick, hello. Lauren and Keswick, Lonnie Murray, hello. Michael Plecker, Jason Howard, Kelly Lewis, Scott Q, Johnny Ornalis, Georgia Gilmer, Richard Fox, Dino, hello. Guys, if you have questions, put them in the feed. This is a great one from Grayson. How is this going to impact Albemarle County? What happens in Charlottesville with density and zoning? Will it have an influence?
Albemarle's got an opportunity here to open up land if they can. I don't know how much land Albemarle actually owns, but if they, there was some discussion about a land bank possibly. That would be a good thing, I think, if it's handled correctly. Albemarle has got a lot of land. Not the county itself, but just Albemarle in general. Geographically, there's a lot of land there outside of the metro area. So I would hope that, we would see some more developments coming online, but not developments that are, only hardy plank and only, require 2,500 square feet, or larger. We need to see some developments come online that would accommodate smaller homes. And vinyl siding's a perfectly fine exterior finish for homes. We don't have to make it, so expensive for folks.
Some of the viewers and listeners of the talk show here outside the door right now. I see that's why we locked the door. Do you think Albemarle County will change or will influence or will get influenced by the city with upzoning in any capacity? Here, Diantha McKeel sat in that chair next to you and said, there's no reason, her exact words, I'm not putting words in her mouth. Roger Voisinay says, hello, Woody Fincham from Virginia Beach.
Awesome.
He's watching at Virginia Beach right now. And Diantha McKeel, supervisor, Albemarle County, Jack Jewett District, she said, there's no reason for us to expand the developmental area in Albemarle County. It's 5% right now. Only 5% of Albemarle County is designated for commercial and residential development. She said, there's no reason for us to expand this if our current 5% that's allocated is not at full capacity. Those were her exact words. Do you see, maybe it's the old guard, I want to say, influence at all by Charlottesville City? Or is there not the political capital to do that?
I don't think, legacy politicians are going to change their mind. Here's the thing. When you're dealing with an affluent community like we have, the affluent folks in that community, they have time to lobby. They have time to talk to their politicians. The people who are really being affected by this, young parents, people that are working in service jobs, they're too busy working and taking care of their families to engage at the political level. So I don't think the politicians are actually aware of what the real problems are here. Because those folks that really need the help aren't engaging them.
Well, that's fair. Scott Morris says, good morning, Woody Fincham. Scott,
hey, Scott.
We love you. Here's what, I'll throw this to you. I think the politicians are aware, but I think the politicians are making policy and governmental decisions based on what their constituents want, which, to your point, the constituents that are in their ears are the ones that have the deep pockets, that are the ones that want to keep the county the same.
Sure.
Or like the ones that maybe want more density because they want to live here. They're not living here right now because they can't afford it.
Right.
So they can't be chirping in the ears of, say, Supervisor Malik is either in her fourth or fifth term. Diantha McKeel is in, her second or third term.
Okay.
We got Lepisto currently running for a second term right here. We do have some potential youth coming on the board, and Mike Pruitt, who's running unopposed in the Scottsville district. But Pruitt's only one of 6 votes.
Right.
Pruitt will join us on the I Love Seville show next week, guys. So to Woody's point, I don't think the political capital is there to expand the development area. And as long as it's only 5% for housing and for commercial, the supply is going to be so constrained that the prices are going to go up, which is your business, which is what you do. Thoughts on any of that?
Well, we've got to have a change in philosophy locally if we're going to develop more. And people move to Charlottesville, they love it the way that it is. But this NIMBYism, the not in my backyard folks, and that's a lot of people. And if you talk to anybody on an individual basis and say, hey, we have an affordable housing issue. Our service people can't get into homes because they've been priced out of it. If you talk to them individually, they'll say, great. But if you talk to them as a group in their neighborhood, they're going to say, well, it's great, but we would like that to be in another part of the county, not next door to us. So that's the reality of what we're working with. And I mean, from a business perspective, from my business, of course, I want to see more development. It makes more money for my company. Our revenue will go up because of it. But, you know, I mean, I live here and I want to see Charlottesville continue to be as great as it's always been. And to do that, we've got to afford some of those folks that can't afford to live here to be able to live here.
Great take right there from Woody. Neil says this, guys, put the questions in the feed. I'll relay them live on air. Give Woody Fincham props in the comment section. I'll relay it live on air. This a follow-up based on what Nicole Scrow is trying to do. Nicole Scrow is a developer. She's a home builder. Neil says, can the current land prices support smaller home developments? Nicole, and I follow her on Twitter, it was a few days ago. She had an interaction with John Blair started this on Twitter. John's watching on LinkedIn, and he showed a jurisdiction where it's a major home developer, and I'm going to go to Twitter and find what that major home developer's name was doing essentially row houses, and these row houses had very little space. They were single-family detached, but there was very little space between each of the houses.
Okay.
And the developer was trying to maximize rooftops on dirt to drive value, but while also maximizing rooftops on dirt, they were able to create a more affordable product because they had more of them that they were able to pass on the savings potentially or a lower price to the market.
Right.
So Scrow, and this was on Twitter, asked the question, can the current land prices in our area, Albemarle and Charlottesville, let's talk, support smaller home developments?
Well, you know, the meeting I was mentioning a couple days ago, I don't work in the development side of things, but we got to hear a lot of developers talk. And I mean, one lot, apparently, from what I have gathered from that meeting, is that you're looking at $120,000 per lot just to get it going. That's, to answer your question, with that kind of price in there, no. I don't think.
What's the multiple based on price generally? If a lot is purchased for this?
So in my career, we've seen it go anywhere from about 20 to 30% of the total cost. So, you know, when I'm doing allocation studies and things like that to figure out what land would be worth in an improved neighborhood, that's generally where we're going to be, about 25%.
So if a home, basic math, a lot is 100K, you're looking at something that's going to be, say, 300 to 500 minimum, and it's probably in this area closer to 5 with cost of goods, labor. Labor's extremely expensive in this area. Cost of goods are stabilizing a little bit, but they're certainly pricey, and the interest rate environment is costly. Is that a fair read?
It is.
So will we see any of this small home development, do you think, locally?
Only if we can get rid of some of that cost, and I don't know what that means. Does it mean putting together grants for things like this, tax programs? I mean, that, and some of this we're talking about would have to happen at the state level. You know, I mean, I don't know what's available out there. I mean, the community land trust system that's been coming up over the last couple of years here, that's worked really well, but it's very finite. You know, they can only do but so much. But I mean, that essentially removes that land cost to the borrower. And it does help folks get into a situation where they can, you know, get something more affordable.
This has been put on the feed from Spencer. Do you expect the university to capitalize or to take advantage of the more density in the city of Charlottesville? And if the University of Virginia does do that, won't that just backfire on residents? That's a good question.
Well, they've already acquired a lot of property around their new development over there for the conference center. And you know, we did several of the private assignments when, you know, the foundation was coming in to buy up that property. So, I mean... Can
I ask you about any of those, or you prefer not to talk about it?
I mean, I can talk in general about it.
Okay.
So, but I mean, you know, they have deep pockets, and they're willing to pay for what they need to do. I mean, they've got a vision for what they want to do, and will they take advantage of the upzoning? I don't know. I mean, I would hope that... they don't put further stress on the market, but I mean, you know, they're going to do what they need to do, again, because they have their vision for what they want to do.
Neil, will you share the stat you shared, I think it was last week or earlier this week, on the university's goals when it comes to enrollment over the next handful of years? If memory serves correct, the university in totality, 3,000 to 4,000 additional students, their goal to enroll
Over
at
what
UVA.
period of time?
That's what I want to know. Neil, if you could share that period of time, that would be fantastic. It was a great comment. And then what I'll do is I'll save that on my file here with key data points. I want to say it was by 2045. So we're talking 20 years. I hope he shares it. But this is what I think. You know,
Per year? We're talking that many per year?
No, just in total.
Yeah, that's not much.
I mean, that's a lot of bad. You know, that would be
sure,
houses.
it's more, but
Yeah.
I mean that's almost at an attrition rate over that period of time, though.
Well, we'll see. You know, here's what I think is going to happen. And I'm just trying to read the tea leaves. And you've already touched on this. You got Ivy Road, which you know well. You got the Data Science School, the Hotel and Conference Center. You got the Kimpton Hotel over on Ivy Road that also has a conference center.
Right.
So in a 24-month period of time, we went from essentially no conference centers to having 2, right?
Yeah.
UVA is going to own 1. The Kimpton's going to have 1.
Right.
Data Science School is very close in the old Cavalier Inn Hotel spot
Right.
on Ivy Road.
Great location.
Great location, phenomenal location. We used to stay there when my dad went to UVA, I went to UVA, my brother went to UVA, and when they came to visit my brother and I at the University of Virginia, they stayed at the Cavalier Inn because they could walk everywhere. We already know that the biotech school, they've already said it's 2,000, 3,000 new jobs. They've on record said
Right.
coming here out of market jobs. And we also know that they're going to expand enrollment. So
Yeah, those two things working together, that's a different story. Those
Go,
jobs,
okay, yeah.
those households that are going to come online that will need to come online for those new jobs, definitely going to add more stress to the market.
I put something along the lines of this on Twitter, and the UVA School of Data Science retweeted my tweet, essentially verifying what I said. And what I said on Twitter was the school was going to strengthen the economy. The school was going to create an ecosystem around data science where new businesses that are not currently in this market will open up to poach the talent that's coming through the school, creating essentially this economic ecosystem around a space, or Judah, if you can handle that, please, right there, around a space of study or education
Right.
that is hugely popular right now. Thoughts on any and all of this?
Number one, the data science school, I think, is a great direction for the university to go. I mean, I work in data science with what I do, and you know, if I were a younger person, I would definitely be looking at my master's there. But I don't know. I mean, and I'm going to offer an anecdotal personal opinion on it. I mean, people who get into that business don't need to be geographically located where it is, right? I mean, most of our tech folks are working remotely now. I mean, that's a post-COVID reality. So I don't know. Is it really going to bring that many companies in? I don't know. But I'm just looking at that with a little bit of skepticism from that perspective. You know. But I mean, with the new jobs and everything else and all the services that'll have to come up to go along with it, I mean, it's obviously going to increase the amount of population that we have here. I mean, there's no question there.
Here's the stat. Mayor Snook offered this stat. He said the University of Virginia would grow by 1% annually. 1% annually.
Okay.
That would mean 4,000 new residents in 20 years. This came up at a zoning work session between City Council and Planning Commission. That's a quote from the mayor.
Okay.
1% annually, 4,000 new residents over the 20-year period of time. That's what?
Now we're talking long-term residents, not student residents.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Long-term residents, not student residents. Your thoughts on that stat?
I mean, again, what I don't understand is why are we not looking at going vertical? Air development rights should become a thing here. They really aren't, because we want to keep this bucolic, Jeffersonian, small town look. I think we're starting to see a need to start going vertically. I mean, our downtown really does need to go up. I mean, why are we not looking in that direction? I mean, because we're obviously not doing very well expanding on the horizontal level. So let's look at the vertical.
Well, is there the political capital to do that's the question?
That's going to have to change.
Do you think it's, Kevin, I'll get to your comment here in a matter of moments. Do you think vertical is a realistic reality?
I mean, in the current the temperament that we have here now, no. I mean, I think it's silly that we're not looking more at it. I don't know. Charlottesville can't look the same in 40 years that it looks right now. I mean, if we continue to try to develop in the horizontal level, we're just going to create suburban sprawl. We do need more density around the core of our region, and that is Charlottesville. So, I mean, why we're not looking at it or not willing to go in that direction, I'll never understand.
Kevin in Waynesboro, Charlottesville decided in the 70s and 80s that shopping centers and restaurants were more important than large employers. During that time, there were four to five large employers in Charlottesville. Now there are what, 2 or 3? Let's think the large employers in Charlottesville. You got obviously the University of Virginia.
Well, you've got your hospitals. Centera and the University Hospital are major employers.
CFA.
No, yeah, CFA definitely. We lost State Farm.
State Farm.
Engic, of course.
Yeah. Let's see.
I was just looking at all this literally 2 days ago, and I don't remember.
University of Virginia, Centera, Martha Jefferson, obviously Charlottesville City and Albemarle County.
Right.
The CFA Institute, Northrop Grumman.
Yes.
Crutchfield's a fairly large employer.
Sure.
Kroger and Harris Teeter, just because they have multiple locations, a fairly large employer right there. I guess you could say any of the grocery stores.
Right.
Aramark has got a fair amount of employees.
Right.
And they do the dining, run the food halls for UVA.
Right.
But really not a ton.
No.
And I would imagine the large employers don't need to be necessarily based in a high cost of living area like this because people can work remotely and hybridly. Roger says Apex and Willow Tree should be on that list.
Yeah, they should. Yeah.
He's on Virginia Beach. So we do have the employer traction there. The question is, why would a large employer set up shop in a high cost of living area like this when their employees may not be able to afford to live here?
Well, I mean, I could see an executive management level professionals coming here. I think, we've seen that with some of the smaller tech companies that are coming in or that have come in. They're making salaries that they can afford to live in the area. But yeah, your normal, Joe Smith worker is not going to be able to come into an area like this unless they're going to go out to a very rural sector of the market. From
Jennifer here, she says, why not more condos or apartments in this area? We've come here from Northern Virginia, and townhomes and condos were everywhere. Why don't we see them in Charlottesville and Albemarle? It's a good question.
There's just not a political appetite for it right now.
You think that would change?
I don't think. You think evolution's going to happen. I mean, change is inevitable, but timing of the change is that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, when's it actually going to happen?
Right. Absolutely. Guys, comments I'm going to get to here in a matter of moments. This is a very good one. Grayson follows up by saying, the interest rate environment, if you guys can get back onto that topic, many times folks have said on this talk show that when rates drop, the inventory is going to pick up. Now it seems the tune has changed a little bit. Please take a deep dive on rates.
Well, inventory might actually increase to some degree. However, if you've got more buyers coming in than inventory to support it, then you still remain in a negative position, right? I mean, it's just a net negative, which just drives competition, and competition means higher prices. So, I mean, we probably will see some more inventory coming on, but will it keep up with the pace of, the amount of consumers coming into the market that will buy? And I think the answer is no.
This is a great one from Cara on LinkedIn. She says, remote workforce needs to be supported by housing with fiber internet and stable and supported small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses that provide a variety of things to do and places to eat. That's a damn good comment.
Yeah.
I'll read that one again, and then you unpack this for the viewers and listeners. Remote workforce needs to be supported by housing with fiber internet and stable and supported small and medium-sized businesses that provide a variety of things to do and places to eat. Unpack that for us.
Well, I mean, once you get out into the less urban areas and less suburban areas in the county, I mean, the internet's not great. Self-service is not great. So, I mean, you do need those two things in order to help remote workers take advantage of being out in those rural areas. I mean, Nelson County is an example. That high-speed trunk they put through the valley really helped them. I mean, when COVID came on strong, I mean, it's proof in the pudding. You know, you've got a lot of folks that are living in Wintergreen, and the Wintergreen. What's the name of the subdivision down on the valley floor? Stony
Point, Stony Creek.
Yeah, Stony Creek. I mean, you're seeing a lot of full-time residents there, where those were mostly second homes or vacation homes for a lot of folks, particularly in Wintergreen. But we do a tremendous amount of work up there. And we're seeing a lot of folks now that are living there permanently because they've got the internet to support them. And stuff like that around the more rural areas and less populated areas would be great. I mean, like in Fluvanna, we were able to get a part of the Firefly thing that was coming out there with the electric co-op. And that's worked out really well for a lot of folks. So.
I will put in a plug, and I think she's going to like this, for Ting Fiber Internet. That's what our building is running on here. And this network is running on. And since we made the transition from Comcast to Ting, the network's been stronger than ever.
Good.
And our 24 tenants in this building have been more happy than ever. I also was showing one of our office spaces yesterday to residents in Nelson County that were building a custom home in Nelson County. They bought the dirt. They're literally building the house now. And they said if it wasn't, and I'm drawing a blank on the internet provider, if it wasn't for this specific fiber provider and internet, they would not have purchased this dirt or chosen to build their forever house there.
Right.
Any viewer and listener, Jesse Rutherford, can you help me on that? The provider of internet that is coming to Nelson. I should know that. I literally had this conversation yesterday. Firefly? One of the viewers and listeners will help us here. Do you think that this community is becoming so expensive that the small and medium-sized business is struggling to have sustainability and long-term success here? And if so, what is the fallout of that?
Well, I mean, Charlottesville is full of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of small business, medium-sized business here. My company being one of those small businesses. It's for us. I mean, we live in Fluvanna. We don't pay a business license fee. There's a lot of advantages to being out in the rural area like that.
You have no business license fee there?
No.
Get out.
No.
That's awesome.
I honestly think they should actually go with it so we can get some more resources for the kids out there.
Well, okay, so I'm learning something here.
Yeah.
Personally, what's the business taxes in Fluvanna?
There aren't any.
There's zero business tax?
No, I don't pay any business taxes to Fluvanna.
Oh my God.
Now, I'm sure they get some sales tax, but they don't get
hammered in the city of Charlottesville.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah. Now 90% plus of the jurisdiction is funded by residential taxes, rooftop taxes,
Yeah.
right? So they're making it up in some ways there. Get out. So what would prevent, and I'm just talking out loud here, you just literally flabbergasted me. What would prevent somebody from setting up shop in Fluvanna and doing business all over Central Virginia digitally through the internet or an ISP?
Nothing.
That's what you guys are doing?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, we're still on Comcast, which we hate, by the way. We are switching to Firefly, but when I'm uploading, some of our files get 30, 40, 50 meg, and when you're uploading on the speeds that Comcast
takes
will
forever.
It's horrible.
Yeah. Jason Howard on Rio Road, you've talked about the labor issues in Charlottesville and the switch to kiosks and other forms of automation. Are you seeing more of your clients using these kinds of solutions instead of the labor they can't find? I am seeing more of our clients using automation. The small and medium-sized business, however, doesn't have the financial resources to do it. So as businesses head to automation and kiosks, it really gives a leg up to those brands that are well capitalized and or publicly traded and or chains or corporations. Do you want to unpack that at all?
I mean, we are inundated daily with the new AI technology that's coming out to assist small business, and also with virtual workers. And of course, we don't use any of that. I mean, now I don't have an actual office where all my people work. Everybody's remote, so I guess it's virtual in that respect. But we get marketed to all the time, and the problem with it is that it is expensive. As a small business owner, I can't justify the expense for some of that. So we're keeping everything with our normal workforce that we would normally use. Of course, we're not very large. I mean, there's 10 of us total. So
I mean, I'm literally, while hosting this talk show, thinking about building an 800 square foot or renting an 800 square foot office or studio and just doing the I Live Seville show from Fluvanna. and that would legitimately save us tens of thousands of dollars in taxes.
Well, do the Mark Maron podcast thing. He does it out of his garage.
Yeah, that legitimately would save me off the rip tens of thousands of dollars. Bill McChesney, mayor of McIntyre, Jesse James had a gun. The city of Charlottesville has taxes and fees. This is a very, very good question from Thomas. How has ChatGPT influenced Woody's business or could influence Woody's business?
We've been watching that with a lot of interest. A lot of my colleagues that are appraisers tend to be, a lot of us tend to be kind of on the techie side. We're all nerds. And some of the folks that have really gotten into ChatGPT have actually been feeding market analysis information into it and things like that. It actually writes a rather cogent amount of narrative. Now, it uses old data. I mean, some of the data is a couple years old, and I think that's where ChatGPT kind of stops. But if it was using current data, I mean, I would say that in a lot of cases, the technology is outwriting some of my colleagues.
Comments are coming in very, very quickly here. Firefly and Lumos and Shentel and Ting all providing that internet. Kara, thank you very much for that on
Nice.
LinkedIn. Folks are asking more of the ChatGPT piece. Can ChatGPT become, I don't think it can become the appraiser.
No.
Yeah.
It's a tool. So technology like that works really well when you've got a human being interacting with it. A human being by themselves works great, but they're not the most efficient thing. AI, artificial intelligence, works really well in how it works. When you put the two together, it's like if you remember Steve Jobs talking about the slowest thing in the world is a person walking, but you put them on a bicycle, they're the most efficient thing moving ever. That's really what AI should be. It's a bicycle to the worker, or to the appraiser. So I think between the two things, I think we're going to end up with a what's the word I'm looking for? The symbiotic relationship between the two, I think, will be greater. What is it? The sum of the parts is greater than the old saying. Sorry, my brain's just. But I mean, it's a great tool, and technology in the hands of a well-trained analyst or appraiser, I think it's a positive thing. But one by itself, I don't think AI is going to replace us.
This question has been a follow-up from Jennifer. She says, which part of the real estate supply chain is most susceptible to being beat by ChatGPT? By beat, I think she means replaced or cannibalized.
When you get into homogeneous neighborhoods, like when you're in Forest Lakes or you're in some parts of Lake Monticello and places like that where you've got everything's the same. Of course, Lake Monticello, everything's not the same, but at Forest Lakes, you've got a lot of very similar stuff. Really bad appraisers and really bad agents do really well in neighborhoods like that, because if you can fog a mirror and you got a credential, you can do what you do without any problem. There's no real analysis there. I think where it's going to break down is where you get out into markets where you actually have to do in-depth analysis and understand what you're doing.
This has come via DM, and let me see if I can use his name as it's loading. All right, he says he requests anonymity for this question. Question for Woody. A house in our neighborhood had a... Wow, okay, I see why he wanted an anonymity on this one. Question for Woody. A house in our neighborhood had a murder-suicide last year. Now they are selling and have had to drop the price well below market. How does this impact an appraiser's approach to valuing the houses around it? Is the situation considered, or does it drive down values?
It very much should be considered.
How would you know that, though?
I've done 2 properties in my career that involve murder-suicides. One a murder and the other murder, and several murders and a suicide. And it very much will stigmatize the property. It's bad. Sorry to use such a layman term, but it's just bad juju. Oftentimes properties like that are going to get torn down because if you go to any of the major properties, like say the John Benet Ramsey home out in Colorado, or you go to look at like the Nicole Simpson properties and things like that, those properties aren't there anymore. They readdress them and they rebuild them because people just don't want to live in them. Now, there are some notable exceptions. Like I think Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails famously lived in a murder home and liked it, but that's sort of an odd taste.
How does the appraiser? Would the appraiser know about the murder or suicide just from following the news? And what happens if the appraiser does not know about the murder suicide and just sees the sales price?
Well, it could be a problem. I mean, one of the most important tools that I have at my disposal is called Google. And when I get an assignment, I'm going to put the address in and look and see.
There you go.
And, those are things you need to know.
Do all appraisers do that?
No. I mean,
so you would basically be like, I see a red flag here. Why did this house in this Tony neighborhood, or why did this house, when the comps in this neighborhood would suggest it should not sell at this price, this deep of a discount, and then that your professional would raise red flags and get you to do more research into potentially what happened. You type in the address, and then perhaps the news you see in the news cycle there. Right. What happens if it's not in the news cycle?
Well, I mean, I've never seen a situation where it's not. I mean, that's usually a very notable thing for any community. I mean, it's possible, I guess, that it's going to skate under the radar. And if it's skating under the radar, then the market's not going to be aware of it.
So this is more follow-up from the gentleman who wants anonymity. It should be worth $630, but they have had to drop it down to $565. It keeps falling in and out of contract as well, and it was not really in the news cycle.
Right. So someone's finding out about it, though. That's why that cycle's happening.
Okay, how about this? So this is the brander coming out of me and the advertiser coming out of me.
Yeah.
And this is an idea for the gentleman who's requesting anonymity here. Should the residents in the neighborhood pool their resources and create a branding mechanism, a website, tied to the address of that house that depicts what happened in this location and why the price point is what it is?
Oh, that's a big question. I mean, honestly, I don't know. Generally speaking, I've never seen that happen. So to say what they should or shouldn't do, or
because I would imagine the neighborhood is nervous.
Sure.
Seeing the home trade for so low.
But here's the thing, though.
Okay.
That's going to be what we call a duress, a sale under duress.
Okay.
So there's market forces at play there that are economically making that an inviable comp. So yes, when you are having another appraiser come out to appraise your property, and that property that we're talking about is in the neighborhood, I would probably be the first conversation I'm having with that appraiser. Because unfortunately with residential, we'll have the appraisal management companies and the lenders that they want to get the cheapest appraiser they can. And oftentimes what that means is they're going to hire someone from 2 hours away to come in and do it for half the cost of what, say, a firm like mine would do it for. I'm local. I know what's going on. Real estate's very local. And when you bring in people from outside the market to do it, they may not be aware of that situation. So that's a conversation that those residents should be having with their agents and with their appraisers as they're coming in to work for them. Because, again, if you're going with the cheapest, you're probably not going with the most informed people.
So this has opened up a Pandora's box of comments
Sure.
here. I had never even thought about this, dude. This is why I loved sitting across from you. I literally got blown away is the wrong terminology here because of what we're talking about here. I literally had my mind taken aback by the Fluvanna County tax topic.
Yeah.
On businesses, literally. So the businessman in me is thinking about that. Now this topic I hadn't even really thought of either. So the comments are clearly resonating with the viewers and listeners because I don't think they've even thought about this either. So this one's coming. What's the difference between a natural death or a murder-suicide when it comes to valuing homes? I would imagine a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, again, bad juju, going back to that term. I mean, people can be very, superstitious, and violent deaths are something that our society, unfortunately, we experience it, but we get enamored with it too. I mean, it creates all kind of situations around it. So, look at just Netflix or any of that. I mean, how much true crime documentaries out there?
My wife loves it.
Yeah, my wife does too.
Yeah.
She'll go down a rabbit hole for days watching that stuff.
Yeah.
But in the end, we're infatuated with it. So with it comes, there are people that are going to say, hey, I'm superstitious for whatever reason. I'm not going to live in a home where a violent death has occurred, versus a natural death where, we all die. That's just the reality of the situation. So, and if you're lucky, you get to die at home, in your own bed, and you're not in a hospital, and it's not a violent thing. So, I think that's just a natural thing. I don't believe Virginia requires disclosure of natural death. I'm not sure about the violent stuff, though.
That's a question that just got put on the feed.
Yeah.
Would
I
that
don't
be in the
know.
disclosure and the listing?
I mean, if I were handling the listing as an agent, and again, I'm not an agent, so I'm just
But you do have a real estate license.
no.
No?
I have
Okay.
an appraiser's license.
Appraiser's license,
Yeah,
okay.
I tried to be an agent for about a year and
Yeah.
didn't like it.
Okay.
I like data a bit more than I like holding hands. But mass respect to the people who do it. But I'm not quite sure if they have to or don't have to. I know in certain states it is a requirement, but if I were handling a listing, I would want to be upfront about it. Being transparent is the best way to do business.
This is a great comment that's come in, and before we do, we'll highlight some of the viewers and listeners that are watching. Paul Charon,
awesome. Hey, Paul.
watching in Massachusetts. I believe he's an appraiser as well.
Yep.
Folks in Northern Virginia, Richmond, Short Pump, and Southwestern Virginia on the feed. This is a good question. Which comps are removed from the appraisal algorithm if they check in way lower than the rest of the neighborhood? Or is that comp not removed from what Woody does? And that's from Sloan, who is watching in Short Pump.
So when I'm doing my analysis to figure out how I'm going to value a property, of course, we rely heavily on comparable sales. So we'll take all the comparable sales. I mean, in a neighborhood like Forest Lakes or like Monticello, I might have 3 pages of single, 8 font, single space data points that I can look at for comps. But what I'm going to start looking at is I'm going to array those comps, and I'm going to go, okay, most of my sales occurred in this, this part. If I've got stuff that's really low and stuff that's really high, I'm going to start asking questions about those comps and go, there's something different here. Why are they outside of the normal? And if they're outside of the normal and there's a good reason for it, if it's really low, there could be lots of things going on. It could be a court-ordered sale for a divorce. It could be a situation where someone was getting ready to go into foreclosure and they sold low. Or, there's all kinds of reasons why the participants in the transaction are not acting in their best interest or not able to act in their best interest by getting the highest price that they can. So those things should be excluded in analysis when you're in a market like we are, because they're not normal sales.
Lori watching. Love when
Awesome.
Mrs. Fincham watches. She goes, aren't there some laws about disclosing certain things to potential buyers? We touched on that a little bit.
Yeah.
That would be a question for a realtor.
Yeah, I wish Keith was here. He could tell us.
Yeah.
I believe there is, but I'm not sure.
Okay. This is a follow-up from her, from Sloan and Short Pump. She says, with the comps that check in extremely low, it sounds like they could be discounted in the potential appraisal. How could this influence, however, the sale of other homes in the neighborhood moving forward? That's more of a question for a realtor there.
Well, you go back to Keith's trusted advisor stuff. You want to work with professionals that understand how that works. And most good agents and brokers, they just like appraisers. They're going to go in and look at the data and go, well, and they're going to ask questions. Why are these sales a thumb on a hand compared to everything else in the neighborhood? And if they're legitimate sales, that could indicate that the market's transitioning to a different direction. And we will see that once the market does become, when there's more inventory on the market and we return to our normal, sales like that will occur where people aren't using an agent, so they're not paying a commission, so they may discount their sale because of it. They may be in a financial situation where they don't have to get the absolute most. That starts occurring more often. That becomes the flavor of the market.
Linford Berry, the director of the Virginia Auctioneers Association.
Oh, yeah, awesome auctioneer.
Is giving Woody Fincham some serious props. Paul in Massachusetts says, you're crushing this right now, Woody.
Thanks, Paul.
This is a good question. Can Woody walk us through the steps he does with working with trusts and or the kids that have inherited property from their parents who have passed away? I would imagine he does a fair amount of that business. Oftentimes, this generation is looking to move property so they can get the money as opposed to holding the property like their parents may have done. Very good question right there from Matthew.
So, we don't get...
Matthew, speaking from personal experience here, you don't have to answer that.
We don't get really involved in the ins and outs of exactly why people are doing it. They just come to us when they need a value. And oftentimes in trust and inheritance situations, an attorney is going to, or a CPA is going to suggest to them, hey, you need to get an appraisal. We've got good relationships with a lot of those types of professionals here in the area, so they'll recommend us to go over and work with them. we're doing it at market value. I mean, I don't care if one of the heirs want to sell it high and one wants to sell it low. We're valuing it what it should value at in a normal market. So I mean, we're there to help them as a trusted advisor. Stealing Keith's word again, our term. And we're there to help them make good decisions. I mean, my job as an appraiser is not to be high or low. It's to help people make good decisions. And by trying to help them make good decisions, it means that we're offering them, actual market value. We're not trying to work one direction or the other with them.
All right, so his follow-up on that is, could that second generation, and he is speaking from personal experience here, could that second generation ask for a number that's lower to get the property to move? And I don't want to speak for you. I would imagine that's a conversation for your agent and not necessarily an influence you want to have on the appraiser.
Yeah, if you do that to me, if you engage me and tell me that, I'm going to tell you straight up. My job is to be middle of the road. I've got to write a report as if I'm going to go sit in a witness box, because sometimes in those situations, I got to go sit in a witness box. The last thing I want is a judge or a jury to find me.
And you have exposure.
Yeah, I can't advocate for anyone's cause. I have to do what, if I'm hired for market value opinion, I'm going to give you a market value opinion, and it's not going to be high or low.
Nicole Allen, DOD appraisals are needed to help. What did she walk us through that?
That's a date of death. So, oftentimes someone will pass away. We do a lot of these actually, where, heirs have inherited a property and they need to get a value as of the date of death. And then oftentimes they'll also do a follow-up at 6 months or even a year later. There's situations where we've actually done 4 or 5 appraisals over several years, as the trust or the heirs have held the property for a length of time, and so they will periodically go what we call updates to find out how the market's changed.
Follow-up question for you. You may be scooping up some business here. What percentage of the business is done for trusts and or second generation, third generation owners?
I'm not really understanding the question.
So I think what the question is how much of your business is tied to those kids and or heirs that are just looking to move that property and get the cash? Honestly,
I wish all of it was. I mean, that's some of my favorite work to do.
Why is that?
I mean, lending work is a commoditized service. I mean, I'm an expert at what I do, but lenders oftentimes don't want to pay me an expert rate. They want to pay me, what they consider a competitive rate. I mean, since nationally, a lot of my residential peers are hurting because a lot of markets. I had a colleague yesterday post on Facebook that they're in Texas, in West Texas. They've had 2 assignments in 3 months.
Right. And
they can't pay their bills. That's unfortunate. And so in those.
Why is that? Just no inventory selling.
There's just nothing going on in those markets, and. In those situations, lenders and appraisal management companies who order appraisals for a lot of the lenders, they exploit that. Whereas that market might have been getting $600 or $700 2 years ago for an appraisal, they're trying to bid them out at $200. And there are people that have no choice; they have to take that work because they've got no other means. So I would rather work with non-lending work. Now I have some lender clients I absolutely love, and we do a lot of veteran administration work. I'm on the VA panel, and again, that's some of my favorite work because the VA is very middle of the road. They've always got my back. If we're in situations where consumers or agents are upset with us because of a value, the VA they back us up. Whereas lenders that can't close a deal can't make any money, so they don't like you. It's a commission-based business, unfortunately.
Absolutely. This guy is a breath of fresh air. The business seems like it's humming right now. I have a client that's in the inspection game, not so much, and I'm seeing some of the inspectors having to shift their model to the inspection for informational purposes only, and or they're just charging a nominal flat fee to walk the property with the agent and the potential buyer, and then giving literally feedback on what they see verbally without providing a report as well. And so many of the deals, this as well as anyone, so many of the deals are happening where it's like, if you have this inspection contingency in the contract, you're probably not going to get picked from the pool of potential buyers. Yeah,
if there's a cash offer with no information needed, no due diligence to be done,
that'll win.
Yeah, they win every day.
That'll win. This question's come in. Can you give us some insight into what you just said, cash offers and the percentage of cash offers versus peak COVID with cash offers?
There's still a lot of cash in the market, particularly when you get into the luxury property level. But sometimes it's not actual cash coming out of their bank account. They're cashing out, investments and things like that, or they're borrowing out of their 401k or whatever. So we're still seeing a lot of that. I've been amazed at how much cash we actually see transacting in the market. A lot of refinances we've done over the last couple of years during COVID and after. Were folks that were immediately refinancing a purchase where they used an investment instrument, they cashed out, and they've got like 90 days or 6 months they have to put the money back. And so they immediately will refinance the property afterwards and do that. So cash is still king. I mean, it always will be.
David Harmon in Shaker Heights, Ohio, is giving you props.
Thanks, David.
And saying you're doing a hell of a job here. Dude, the show with you is easy. We're at the 11:30 marker here. Give some thoughts to the viewers and listeners on things we haven't covered that should be out there.
Oh, gosh.
We've covered a lot.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground today.
That's the cool thing about doing the show is I have some questions, and then we just follow the lead of the feed.
Yeah. I mean, your viewers are great. They're all very curious people, which I love. I mean, again, we're just coming along splendidly in Charlottesville. So, I mean, even if you're doing, we're doing a lot of, going back to the cash question, we probably every month do 4 or 5, half a dozen appraisals for people who are buying cash because they want the due diligence. But it's not going to affect how they negotiate. They just want to know what their position is going into the property, and particularly if they're paying more than list price, which is still happening. There's... I'm sorry, Jerry, I just don't know what else to tell you that we should talk about.
How about how we can reach you?
We're available. There's only 2 appraisers that I know of that are named Woody, and myself and my son, and we work for the same company. So finding us online is pretty easy. You can reach me at my email, which is wfincham@cvillevalue.com. We're all over social media, so you can find us there via Twitter, via LinkedIn, wherever. We're always happy to answer questions, even if it's something that we're not going to be working on with you for a fee. If you've got a general question or something like that, I'm always happy, particularly for our real estate agents and brokers out there. I love helping you guys do what you do, and there's no such thing as a stupid question. I mean, we're always happy to help you with that stuff.
Woody Fincham, guys. The man is a wealth of knowledge. Fincham & Associates. Judah Wickower, the director. Thank you, Woody, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's absolutely our pleasure. Check the Partners tab on realtalkwithkeithsmith.com, and you'll see a vetted list of people you can count on to help you buy a house. Keith's been in the business for 38 years, and these are the folks that he suggests and recommend that you use. The I Love Seville show is up in 1 hour, and we're going to have an interview that I think is going to be pretty monumental. We will chat with a former Segura Home employee that's going to offer some perspective of their time in the business and what you guys should know that is going on. So we'll hear from someone that worked for the company. We'll also have a number of other news items that I don't think you guys know about, not tied to the company, but tied to Charlottesville, Albemarle, and Central Virginia. This is a network where we're just trying to be the water cooler of information. We crowdsource content and welcome questions and perspective. We'll see you in about an hour. Take care. Woody, that was awesome. He's going to let us know when the mics are off here and the cameras are off.